I mean, I watched you last night twice, and like I've seen you before, but like it just seems like you trust yourself completely going on stage. And like, I mean, there were even when they're like dips and stuff, like it doesn't seem to affect you. And then you bring it back, like you snap it back and shit. Like, how long did it take till you got to that level?
Hella. I don't know what. I don't know. I wasn't like. I didn't set it. I didn't. The thing is, I didn't start a clock for when it would be. But I'll essentially tell you, like, it was a part of my development as a comic and as a man, because I moved to LA and then moved back to Washington. And after seeing the level of talent, professionalism, and people taking that shit serious, I was like, I'm going to apply everything I just learned in LA to little old Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I started like 12 rooms, and I would host all of them. I quickly ran out of material to say that fast, you know what I mean? And people were bopping around and going to all of my shows no matter what night. And so I just started being loose on stage and just like, well, let's just see what happens. Like, oh, somebody fell in the bathroom. Let's talk about that. And then everyone would be laughing because they all just heard it, you know, whatever. And so I was like, okay. Years later, you fast forward, and I'm like, all right, I can go on stage setless naked and come out for the W pretty much as long as they're answering what I ask them. We can build a story.
Yeah.
You know?
And it just was more in the moment too, and like natural. And it, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
usually, but I mean, I
that.
could tell you a story from that day, or I could tell you a story from the night before, same crowd, say, or different, you know, same club. If it was 5 shows, like I'm like, yo, last night this dude was here, da-da-da-da. Like that's enough for the crowd to be like, oh yeah,
It was close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where were you running all these rooms? I heard, I mean, I'm relatively new. I heard you had like the craziest open mic in the state. Like, they were just like 300 people at it or something. Was that true or?
No, it was a book show.
Okay.
So it was every Thursday night at the Varsity Grill in downtown Tacoma. It used to be Julian's arcade, and it was 420 people. The lightest we had was 260 in 4 years, and we averaged like 383. It changed the entire culture of this area because since it was on a Thursday night, it bumped up everybody's kick it day. So then all the barbershops were packed on Wednesdays. All the clothing stores were sold out on Wednesdays, whereas that normally would be a Thursday in the city because they're getting ready for Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
So it made everyone in Tacoma kick it in Tacoma Thursday night because they would go to the show and the after party. And wherever I said was where we're going was automatically cracking because half the crowd would go.
Yeah.
So you automatically got 250 people at whatever spot. And then Friday night, we'd be like, yo, let's go to somewhere else. So you might go to Olympia or Puyallup or, you know, Kent or something. And then Saturday, we go, let's hit Seattle. Sunday, let's do it all. Let's start it all back up again. But it changed all of that.
So what did you see in LA though that to give you the confidence to do that? Because like that is,
there's a few comics that I saw that I was like, I was already having the itch of like, man, this could get boring. You know what I'm saying? Like the same jokes, fuck.
Yeah.
That could get boring quick. And then I saw like Chris Spencer hosting. And so in LA, the structure of comedy is different than it is pretty much in all the major cities, I would say, right? Like if you go to the Laugh Factory, you only know the host. There's 9 comics on a lineup and they're just like, you know, Chocolate Sundays, Ron G. And you go because you don't know who's going to pop on.
Yeah.
And they got the pictures to prove it. Like Chappelle has popped in, Kevin Hart's popped in. There's a night when they haven't, but we know we're booked. The crowd, it's packed. And they're like, who's on the lineup? They have no idea.
Yeah.
The comics don't know who else is on the show. We're like looking at the valet's podium to see who else is on the line and where we are in the lineup. And so when it's like that, the hosts eat. So even back in the day, like Robin Harris was working, he would host and he would be the majority of the show. Like people were coming to see Robin. And then you can just go through the times of who had the most poppin' nights at the different clubs. And it's always been host heavy. And then pop in or headliner heavy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't necessarily trying to copy that mold because I was like, man, if I could bring LA lineups to Washington on all these shows, it would be shut down city. The issue was that's 3 or 4 flights, 3 or 4 hotels, 3 or 4 whatevers. And then people start saying like, yo, you're funnier than the people headlining, man. Like, why don't you just, you know what I mean? Like, and I started getting on that a lot more. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I'm just going to host. So they would come back consistently because I figured I learned that if I headlined, I tap out of my whole tank of whatever, and then they feel like they had enough, and then probably take 3-4 months before they're like, hey, when are you headlining again? If I host, they always just get little samples and tastes where they're like, yo, I'll be back next week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the rooms, I had one at the Log Cabin Tavern in Lacey. That was the first one I got because it's
that's where you grew up, right?
Yeah, so it's 3 doors down from my parents. Like I literally just had an epiphany and walked down the street and was like, you guys got comedy? And they were like, phone out, bowl out, dowl out. I was like, is there anyone that speaks English? So I got the Koreans to let me talk to the bar person. And she was like, fuck it, we got Tuesdays. I was like, cool. And this was like a place that would hold 20 people or whatever. And so I did the first show and all 20 chairs were full and there was like 60 people standing. Mm-hmm. So they went and rented chairs and changed their whole bar and made like a focal point. And it would be like packed to the back. Like the whole little town of Lacey was like, yo. So then I started one in Olympia in downtown, the Vault.
Have you ever seen When Stand Up Stood Out?
Mm-mm.
It's a documentary on the Boston comedy scene.
Is it good?
It's literally exactly like what you're talking about. All the guys that came out of Boston before Patrice and like
mm-hmm.
that started that kind of that wave. They started with shows like that, and then it turned into 6 clubs in like a 4-block radius, and then all those guys went to New York or got addicted to shit. But like,
I'm like, there's got to be a dark side of that.
You
a lot of
gotta
fucking comedy and
out,
comics.
Dude.